I just want to take a minute to welcome everyone. If you don't know me, I think most do, but if you're online watching later, today, right now, whatever, I'm Pastor Bob. I am the lead pastor here at Rock River Community Church, and welcome. And bienvenidos todos los latinos, and if Danny's watching online as well. So welcome everyone. Today is Jersey Sunday, as Sarah had said, and if you see, I don't have a football jersey, and there's two things. First off, I didn't grow up playing football. I grew up riding motocross bikes, so this seems more fitting for me anyway. But someone from our congregation here gave Annette and I each a jersey to wear because I said I don't have a jersey, and they were Vikings, and being that prior to the political scene that NFL got, I used to be a Packer fan. And I looked at that Vikings jersey, and I just could not do it. I just could not put one on, and I had two to choose from, and it didn't matter because they were both purple. So it wasn't happening. So anyway, so last week I didn't intentionally, but I did. I told a fib. Say, "Aw." Yeah, you did not. What was my fib?
You said last week.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yes, right. Okay, so you did catch it before I even admitted to it. So how do you like that? So last week I did say we were ending our recalculating series. But I thought let's do one more because of Youth United in there. So we'll start a new series in a couple weeks. But take my apologies if you want. If you don't. I don't. Whatever. I did flat out say something, and then I changed my mind. So. But have you ever felt like you were doing everything right? I mean, you personally were doing everything right. You were living as pure as you can. Like you're like, I'm just really on fire with God. I'm living as pure as I can. You faithfully pray every day, and you're in studying the Word, and you're just working hard at everything around you. Anyone feel like that? You're just doing everything. You're doing things as well as you can as a human, right? As well as you can as a human. But still, things just don't seem to be going your way. Anyone? You're doing everything. You're like, oh, this is, but nothing seems to be going your way. You feel like you're pushing forward, but it feels like God has put a roadblock in your path, and you just can't get any. You just can't get any further than that roadblock. And I'm telling you, it can be frustrating, and it can be discouraging. But what if that roadblock in front of you is actually a blessing in disguise? You ever think about that? I mean, I've been there, or I could say Annette and I've been there. Just let me take a pause. Pastor Annette is not here today. She is visiting her mom in Michigan, so she gets several days off from me, but yay for her. But so Annette and I have been in this position before. It felt like we were doing everything right, but things just weren't going right. And we're pastoring at this church, and obviously, as we do, we became great friends with people, and we were very active in the community. Our ministries were growing, and I mean, just everything was going really well. We were doing really, except for one little thing. Because of that one little thing, my mind started to shift, and we had this opportunity come our way to pastor at another church. And as most of you know, Annette and I have always gone where God has called us. Whether we wanted to or not, we went. And it was usually to repair or rebuild fractured ministries that just kind of needed some TLC and some rejuvenation. That's kind of where God's always placed us. So there was a struggling ministry in a church that we were considering at this point, and it wasn't a small church, but there was a ministry inside that church. So we figured, hey, you know what? Since God, you've always called us to these things anyway, that fit our parameters. So we thought for sure this is it. And as I look back now, after, especially when I was writing this, as I look back, I can now see a few roadblocks that God had kind of placed in our way. But there were things that were happening that we thought, oh man, this is for sure is going to happen. Just some good things were happening. We thought, yeah, this is the thing that we have to do. This is the correct God move for us right now. But I see now, as I was reflecting on this, that we had sidestepped a couple of these red flags, and we just kind of kept this process moving along forward. We just kept kind of inching it forward. But if I had to be honest with myself, and I wasn't then, I had this little hesitation. You know what I mean by that? You know, everything seems, but you just got this. But in this excitement and the thought of being closer to my kids, and this is what was driving it, just being closer to my kids, we thought, oh man, that far outweighs this hesitation. I don't know what it is, but I simply dismissed it. I'm like, this is not really happening. This is just something that the enemy's putting inside me. So we made this transition to this new church. We moved. And the entire time that I was at that church, I never felt like I belonged. I felt like I was an outsider the whole time, and I struggled the whole time that I ministered there. I felt like I was constantly struggling, doing everything right. And if only I had listened to that little check that was in my spirit. I went to how to go through the drama. I went to how to bring Annette into this drama. If only at that point I had understood that roadblocks that God places in our way are actually there to protect us. Those roadblocks are there to protect us. But what happens is we choose to listen to our own voices instead of His, because we know better, right? Now this is today. Honest and truly, this is our final series of the Recalculating series. This is our final message of the Recalculating series, and I titled it Roadblocks. And you think, what's the difference between a roadblock and an alternate route that we talked about last week? Well, alternate routes take you back to your destination. You ain't going there with a roadblock. God doesn't want you there. Okay, so that's the difference between this. And sometimes God puts those blocks in our paths because He sees what we cannot see. I mean, imagine if you were driving towards a bridge that was out and it's pitch black at night. Now imagine for a second if there wasn't a roadblock there. How thankful would you be if there's a roadblock that stopped you from driving over that edge? That's exactly what God does, but we don't always see it that way, but that's exactly what God does. He protects us from falling over the edge. And I'll tell you, one of the hardest pills to swallow, I don't know about for you all, but for me, is when God says, no, you're not doing that. But what do? We do it anyway. We do it anyway. We keep moving because oftentimes, like the thought of being closer to my kids, I wanted that so badly. I wanted to minister at this church so badly that we don't see those signs. We don't see those roadblocks. And we're refusing to stop and recalculate the situation because we're so blinded. We are so blinded by whatever it is that we're desiring or that we want to do, and we cannot see that He's trying to protect us with His no. And God told, in Scripture, God told Balaam no. But Balaam, he didn't want to hear no. He didn't want to hear it. So let's check out his story. If we look in Numbers 22, we're gonna begin with the Israelites camping in the plains of Moab near the Jordan River across from Jericho. Here's what's happening. Balak, the king of Moab, sees that they're growing. They're growing in numbers, and he becomes afraid. He's fearful. And he's believing that, hey, they're going to consume this land. They're going to take it all. And he seeks this help from a guy named Balaam, who is a well-known diviner. And he wants him to curse the Israelites, to send a curse upon them. Now, a diviner, if you don't know, is someone who practices divination. How do you say that? Why is there always one word I can never say? He's a diviner, which is, when you're practicing that, it's an attempt to gain insight or knowledge about the future or unknown things through like supernatural means, okay? That's what Balaam did. And Balak knew this. And Balak was hoping to weaken the Israelites and drive them away by sending this curse upon them. So he sends the messengers with money to pay Balaam so he could in fact do that, to curse him. But Balaam consults God, so he prays to God, and God says, and he tells God, hey, you know what, God? Balak had sent me to this message. Now we'll pick up the story in verse 11. It says, look, a vast horde of people. This is from Balak in the message. Look, a vast horde of people has arrived from Egypt, and they cover the face of the earth. Come and curse these people for me. Then perhaps I will be able to stand up to them and drive them from the land. But God told Balaam, do not go with them. But God told Balaam, do not go with them. You are not to curse these people, for they have been blessed. The next morning, Balaam got up and told Balak's officials, go home, the Lord will not let me go with you. So the Moabite officials returned to King Balak and reported that Balaam refused to come with us. Now, if we just read this at face value, we think, okay, well, Balaam did the right thing. But the way that this is worded is Balaam wanted to go, but he said God wouldn't let him go. Now I imagine Balaam saying it like this, I'd really like to go with you, gentlemen. I'd really like to come along, but God won't let me go. But God won't let me go. God doesn't want me to do this, but you know what, guys? I may be able to be persuaded. And by him having this attitude of that, it was given Balak the opportunity to come in and sweeten the pot even more for him. But the words from God are crystal clear, aren't they? They're crystal clear. He says, Balaam, do not go and do not curse. So Balak sends another group of even higher ranking nobles to him, sending more that were more honorable. These guys were more wealthy. They were more to do to try to persuade Balaam to come with them. And they came to Balaam with another message from the king. And he says, please don't, he's almost begging Balaam, please don't refuse to come to me. I will honor and reward you lavishly. I will pay anything. Only please, please, please come and curse these people. Please curse these people. So not only did this new group of people come to Balaam, and not only did they have cash, but they also brought this promise of, hey, you know what? You'll even gain more riches if you come. Come on. Now Balaam refused the temptation the first time, even though he really didn't want to. He did refuse the temptation the first time, but now this temptation even increases. Do you get what I'm saying? Oh, man. And you think, man, that had to be painful for him, knowing that all he had to do was this. But Balaam responded to Balak's messengers, even if Balak were to give me a palace filled with silver and gold, I would be powerless to do so, to do anything against the will of the Lord my God. But stay here one more night, and I will see if the Lord has anything else to say to me. Now, can you picture this in your mind's eye? Balaam's tone and expression when he said this to those people? And Balaam only said this because he knew what God wanted, and he knew even though that he really wanted to do this, he wanted to do this, he knew that God did not want him to do this. And what I felt like when I was reading this is that he's trying to manipulate this scenario because he asks them to stay the night. He says, stay one more night. Stay one more. Proving that he really did. He actually did want to take them up on their offer. And he's blaming God for him not being able to go. God says no. He should be saying no. But in fact, there wasn't any reason at all to even approach God again. There was no reason to ask God again. He already gave Balaam the answer. But Balaam does choose to ask again. And so many times when we read this, we can think, oh, this may sound spiritual. And it may sound like Balaam is doing the right thing, seeking God for an answer, but his heart behind it was corrupt. And I think that we're all kind of guilty of this sometimes, aren't we? I mean, think about it. How many times have our kids, or better yet, what about when we were kids and we asked mom and dad for something and the answer was no? How many times did we go back to them hoping for a different answer? But no is no. And that's what Balaam was doing. He was acting like this little child, hoping that God would change his mind. However, in Scripture, it would appear here at face value that God did change his mind. Listen, verse 20. That night God came to Balaam and told him, since these men have come to you, get up and go with them. But do only what I tell you to do. So the next morning Balaam got up, saddled his donkey, and started off with the Moabite officials. Now, again, most would think that, since God told Balaam, hey, you know what, go with them. It's going to be all right, that he did change his mind. But let me tell you, God did not change his mind. Because if Balaam went with these messengers, he's now outside of God's will. God did not change his will here. He had clearly declared what he wanted, and Balaam simply thought, no, he rejected it. God was testing and revealing the wickedness of Balaam's heart. And how often does he reveal the wickedness of your heart when you continue to go down the same path with him, just like Balaam did? In our lives, God says no to our prayers because he loves us and desires to protect us. But we don't see it. Sometimes God lets us do things because he wants to test the condition of our hearts. What are you going to do? However, for Balaam, the temptation at this point is just too much for him to take. And he caves. And he's thinking in his mind. He's thinking his thoughts. He's not thinking God's thoughts at all. Balaam got up in the morning, and I'm thinking Balaam got up in the morning, not wasting a single second. Oh man, I got to get going. All giddy and happy. Oh, this is awesome, God. I got God's blessing, and God is allowing me to go. All I did was have to ask him twice. And I think that Balaam was all depressed just the day before, right? Or the time before, sad and maybe a bit upset when God said, no, Balaam, no. And now, he's all excited and he's all happy and believing that he convinced God to say yes. Having no clue at all what was happening behind the scenes, what God was doing behind the scenes. And I'll tell you, Balaam's intentions were not pure. Balaam's intentions were motivated by greed, and greed only. Because of this, God got angry at Balaam when he took off with the messengers. And an angel of the Lord confronted them on the way. Verse 22, but God was angry. God was angry that Balaam was going, so he sent the angel of the Lord to stand in the road to block his way as Balaam and the two servants were riding along. Guess what? Dios puso un obstáculo en su camino. He put up a roadblock. God literally puts up a roadblock in his way. Some of us may think that this was unfair since God, hey, Balaam, go ahead and go. And then God gets angry because he went. And first time I was reading through this scripture, I'm thinking, I don't get this. Why is God so angry? But Balaam went because he did not want to listen to God's voice, even though his conscience knew it was wrong, and he knew that he was disobeying a clear command. So God got angry and had every right to get angry. Balaam's heart was set on doing what he wanted, looking to the riches that Balak had promised instead of obeying God. And then I sat there as I was writing this, and I thought, boy, I wonder if God was that angry at me for sidestepping the roadblocks he set in the path that I was traveling on. I know I was looking through tunnel vision, and I was just laser focused on being near my kids. But notice what I just said here. I said, I and my. I and my. I and me. Instead of God and what he wanted. I wasn't looking at God. I was looking through my lens. And neither was Balaam. However, Balaam's donkey saw that the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. The donkey bolted off the road into a field, but Balaam beat it and turned back onto the road. The donkey saw the angel of the Lord. The donkey was more spiritual and spiritually perceptive than this great diviner, than this great man. The donkey had no spiritual gifts whatsoever, and yet he saw the angel. What does that tell you? Balaam might have been this spiritual guy, but he was also operating at this point with a disobedient heart. And apparently, not only did he have a disobedient heart, he had a little temper problem too, because he started beating the poor little donkey. Verse 24, then the angel of the Lord stood at a place where the road narrowed between two vineyard walls. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it tried to squeeze by and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. So Balaam beat the donkey again. Another obstacle, another roadblock. It was the donkey that responded to the angel of the Lord, and it tried to sneak past. But because of Balaam's disobedience, now Balaam's inflicted with pain, just like he's inflicting on poor little donkey. I got Shrek in my mind now. This pick me. The donkey here represents an example of just a simple and obedient follower of God. The donkey saw the angel of God and followed the direction of the angel of God. He's listening, he's following, he's seeing. And Balaam is clueless to this whole scenario. He's clueless. Verse 26, then the angel of the Lord moved further down the road and stood at a place too narrow for the donkey to get by at all. This time when the donkey saw the angel, it laid down under Balaam. In a fit of rage, Balaam beat the animal again. And once again, Balaam is faced with another roadblock, and yet another roadblock that he didn't even see. This time, the donkey stops and lays down, and it seems to me the donkey at this point is actually doing some recalculating. You know? We might think, you'd think that Balaam might have been thinking that because of how difficult this journey has been up to this point, that it would have triggered something in his mind to realize that this was not God's will at all. Have we ever done that? I mean, who knows what Balaam was actually thinking at this point? And I guess it really doesn't matter what he was thinking, because he wasn't in God's will, and because he wasn't in God's will, you know who suffered? The donkey. And now the donkey has pretty much had it with these beatings. He's had it with the beating. Verse 28, then the Lord gave the donkey the ability to speak. What have I done to you that deserves your beating me 3 times, he had asked Balaam. You have made me look like a fool, Balaam shouted. If I had a sword with me, I would kill you. But on the same donkey you have ridden all your life, the donkey answered. Have I ever done anything like this before? No, Balaam admitted. Sounds like I'm reading a fairy tale, doesn't it? The donkey's like, dude, knock it off already. Stop it. And Balaam is so angry that he immediately answers the donkey. And he threatens him. Now, I don't know about you, but if it was me on that donkey, my first reaction would certainly be talking to him. I'd be like, wait a minute. What exactly just transpired just now? What happened here? And we don't know, we don't know if the donkey actually spoke like verbal words or if it's something that Balaam actually heard the donkey and it didn't. We don't know. But no matter what happened, we know that God is capable of pretty much doing anything. But Balaam admitted that, hey, you know what? The donkey here got the best of him. The donkey, and he had to pretty much humble himself to a donkey and admit that, you're right, dude, you were never like this, man. So maybe, just maybe, there was a good reason why you're acting the way you've been acting these last 3 times you've stopped and I had to beat the snot out of you. Verse 31. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the roadway with a drawn sword in his hand. Balaam bowed his head and fell face down on the ground before him. Why did you beat your donkey those 3 times, the angel of the Lord demanded. Look, I have come to block your way because you are stubbornly resisting me. 3 times the donkey saw me and shied away. Otherwise, I would have certainly killed you by now and spared the donkey. Then Balaam confessed to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned. I didn't realize you were standing in the road to block my way. I won't turn home if you are against my going. This just came to me. I don't know how many times I read that. I will return home if you're against my going. That's not in my notes, but think about that for a second. A donkey talks to you and you say, are you against my going? This scripture here, this made the will of God pretty clear, I think. God told Balaam about, I don't know how much clearer God could have told Balaam, saying, don't go, turn back now. Don't go. This is not the right route. Finally, Balaam admits, he said, I have sinned. Yeah, no doubt. I have sinned. And he missed every attempt that God sent to block his way. Now, when we read this, we might think, okay, Balaam is being humbled. He's humbled. He's back on track. But think about it. Wasn't this an obvious observation? Obvious observation. And easy to say when you actually now see God's angel in front of you holding a sword in his hand? Might that change your mind right there? Maybe your mind, but not your heart? Now, we can learn so much from this story. When we fail to listen, God can throw up roadblocks. From earlier, did you think of a time when you experienced anything like this? Doing everything right. Times when things just seem not to go right no matter what you do. You're still praying. You're still in the Word. You've prayed against the enemy, but you still find yourself that you just cannot move forward. Sometimes this is God attempting to block you from the path that you are on. So you can stop, so you can recalculate and find His path. Not your path, but His path. So some of the most difficult predicaments that we face is when we don't notice those roadblocks in front of us. Oftentimes, it's because we just refuse to hear the truth. We don't want to hear the truth. We don't want to hear His truth. We want to hear our truth. And because we want something so badly, we just are laser focused, like that pastoral position that didn't work out so well for me. Other times we can get so wrapped up in something that we stop looking in His direction. And God has to kind of get us back on track somehow. Get us back focused. And sometimes He does something super crazy like a talkie donkey. The enemy knows how to influence your heart. Can I say that again? The enemy knows how to influence your heart, each one of your hearts. And he uses that against us. And he convinces us to keep moving forward in situations that are destined to be harmful. They're destined to be unhealthy, or they're just not the direction that God has planned for us. And the enemy, he mimics God's voice and His signs so that we think we're hearing from Him, when it's the enemy himself setting the trap for us. And we're walking right into it. And how do we know we're walking into it? How do we know it's a trap from the enemy or not a trap from the enemy? How do we know? Ask God. Pretty simple solution. Ask God. And if you don't hear anything from God, guess what you do again? Ask Him again. Don't move till you hear from Him. Balaam heard from Him, and yet he moved. But if you don't hear from Him, ask again. Pray this psalm right here. Show me the right path, O Lord. Point out the road for me to follow. Lead me by your truth and teach me, for you are the God who saves me. All day long I put my hope in you. Pray that prayer in your waiting. And if you still don't hear anything, listen. Stay still and don't move until He moves. You'll know. You'll know. Because listen, not hearing from Him may be that roadblock. That could be the roadblock. And at that point, you have to take time and recalculate. God's roadblocks are not punishment. They're signs. They will redirect you, they will protect you, or they can prepare us for something even greater, something unimaginable. Trust Him. Trust Him when we don't understand, because one day we're going to look back and see what this roadblock was. We're going to think about this roadblock, and we're going to say, hey, you know what? That roadblock was actually a huge blessing in disguise. If I didn't have that roadblock, this wouldn't have happened. When God closes the road in front of you, it's because He has something better in mind. He's not rejecting you. Listen, He's not rejecting you. You know what He's doing? He's redirecting you. Just take the time to recalculate. Listen and pray. Don't be like Balaam and listen to your heart. And don't beat a donkey.